Welcome to another edition of Whiskey, Games, and Nerd Stuff. Today's whiskey is, we're going to continue with our Skrewball peanut butter whiskey. That is so good. And then today we're going to talk about my Commander deck for Magic the Gathering. For those not familiar, Magic the Gathering is a TCG that's been around for about 30 years. And Commander is a format where you play with 100 cards. And the unique thing is it's supposed to be one, you only have one of each card when you have a commander, the exceptions being lands. And then traditionally you're playing this on 4-on-4. You can play it 1-on-1, but usually it's going to be 4-on-4. This deck is pretty much it's an easy deck to play. It's not optimized by any means, but for any of those that are familiar with Magic the Gathering, if you see something that definitely should not belong in this deck, please feel free to make a comment. If you see something that definitely should stay in there, obviously comment as well if you don't mind. I really do appreciate it. So the commander that I have in this deck is Krenko Mob Boss. People either love or hate this particular commander. It does have the tendency to get out of control if it's not checked. Basically what can happen, and the goal of this deck is to bring it out and tap it. When I tap it, as you can tell from the text, it's when you tap it, you'll put X number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens on the battlefield, where X is the number of goblins you control. So if you happen to have one goblin, you tap it, now you've got 2. The next turn you tap it, then you have 4, then 8, then 16. So it can definitely snowball and get out of hand. And the cards that I have in here, the idea is to have certain synergy that'll kind of go into that and help out with this. So I'll go through the artifacts that I have in here real quick, which may or may not be the best again from the synergy purposes, but it's what I have in here. So the first one I have is a Soul Ring. Soul Ring is you're tapping it to get 2 mana. So the idea is the first turn you play it out, the next turn it gives you 2 colorless mana, and the hope is it helps me if I happen to get it in that first couple cards, gets to having Krenko out there faster. The next card I have out as an artifact is basically equipped creatures get +1/-1. When equipped creature is put into the graveyard, draw 2 cards. So there's going to be cases in here where I want to put that out there to kind of bump up, and then when they kill somebody off, I get to draw 2 cards. So, maybe I put this on the commander when it's out there, so when they try to kill the commander, I can draw 2 cards. The next one is Spectre Shroud. Equipped creature gets +1/+0. When equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card from his or her hand. So this is one where if I'm going to be able to hit somebody through, and not only do I have the benefit of pumping up that particular creature, but I also have the advantage of taking off someone's, having a discard. The next one is Spinning Well, which I can add 1 mana of any color, or I can tap a target creature. So it's a good, position to have, where if somebody's got a large creature out there, I want to tap them before they have the opportunity to attack me, and it's an additional mana source. The next artifact I have out is Heraldic Banner. When this comes in, you pick a color. For this deck, I'm going to pick red, and then creatures I control of the chosen color, which is going to be every creature in here, gets 1/1/0. So basically, it instantly makes all my creatures that much bigger, and I also get to add a mana of that particular color. The next artifact I have in here is Puppet Strings. So what's cool about Puppet Strings is it gives me that combo where when I do create Krenko Mob Boss, I can tap him to create a certain number of goblin tokens. So let's say I have 2 goblins out, I tap him, now I'll have a total of 4. The 2 I had plus 2 more is 4. Well, if I have 2 mana, I can then pay 2 mana to tap or untap a target creature. So I would tap Krenko the first time, creating those tokens, pay my 2 mana to untap Krenko, and then tap him again to create that many more tokens. So if I started out with 2 tokens, tap him, now I have 4, I pay that 2 mana to untap them, tap them again, and you can see how it can kind of increase from there. The next one I have is the Icon of Ancestry. Basically, creatures I control get +1/+1, and then I can look at the top 3 cards of my library, reveal a creature card, and then put it to my hand. Well, if all my creature cards that I have are goblins, when I do that goblin type, they're all going to be goblins. The next one I have is Eldrazi Monument, which is creatures I can control have +1/+1 and have flying indestructible. And then at the beginning of my upkeep, I'll sacrifice a creature. If I don't sacrifice, otherwise I'll sacrifice this artifact. So the good thing about Krenko is what you're trying to do is have, 8, 10, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 goblin tokens, and if this makes them all flying indestructible, you're pretty much going to win the game on that one. The next one is Grigmore of the Dead. Basically, it lets me put some counters on there and ultimately bring out all the creature cards in my graveyard. And the next one for artifacts I have is God Pharaoh Statue. Spells my opponent's cast cost 2 more, and at the beginning of my end step, each opponent loses 1 life. So basically, it's making all their stuff cost a little bit more, while at the same time, each end steps that cost a life. So then I'm going to go into the enchantments. So the first couple ones aren't that great. Basically, this is just a quick enchantment creature, gets +2/+2, and has haste. I don't know if this is the best card to have in here. The idea is maybe I can have the opportunity where if Krenko comes out, I give him +2 and he has haste, or I have another creature comes out, I give him +2 and he has haste. So on turn 3, I can have a smaller goblin turning into a 3/3 with haste. The next one is Ferocity of the Wilds. All non-human creatures I control have +1/+0 and have trample. Well, all these are going to be non-humans because they're goblins. I really like the Skrewball with, you put it in the ice and let it sit there for a while. The next enchantment is, I could probably get rid of this one. Enchanted creature has +2/+2, and target creature can't be blocked with creature this turn. I don't think this is the best particular card in here. I think I can get rid of this card and replace it with somebody else. For those watching, if you feel that this needs to be taken out of the deck and you have a suggestion for a replacement, I'd love to hear it. The next card, enchantment, is at the beginning of my upkeep, create a 1/1 red goblin creature with token with haste. And then all my goblins have to attack. So basically every turn I'm creating a goblin creature token. Well, if I have this out before Krenko, I'm bringing out creatures, I'm tapping Krenko to then get more tokens, and it kind of snowballs from there. The next one is an enchantment that creatures can't block this. X number of creatures can't block this turn unless that controller plays X for each blocking creature. So this can basically make it to where they can't block some of my bigger ones. The next one is an enchantment, Warstorm Surge. When a creature enters the battlefield under my control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So remember, Krenko has the ability to tap and get additional tokens. So what can happen is, let's say I have 4 or 5 goblin tokens out, I tap in 5 more goblin tokens come out, and not only do I have 5 creatures entered into the battlefield, each one of them is doing 1 damage to any target. So if I have 10 creatures, 10 tokens out, there's 10 damage, and so on and so on. So you can see how that can kind of add up. The next one that kind of goes with this is whenever a creature enters the battlefield under my control, Impact Tremor does 1 damage to each opponent. So now I have another card that anytime a creature comes in, I'm doing a damage to all my opponents. So I have a situation here where I tap Krenko Mega Boss, maybe there's 5 goblin tokens that created, then what happens is that does 5 damage to each opponent. The next card that I have that goes with this is Kira Negotiator. So tap an untapped creature control, Negotiator deals 1 damage to target creature. So here's one where I'll need somebody to help me remember the rules on is, I can have Krenko tap him to create, let's say, 4, 5, 6 Goblin tokens, depending on what I have on the board. Those Goblin tokens cannot attack that turn because they have what's called summoning sickness, meaning they have to wait a turn before they can attack. Well, I can still tap them to do 1 damage to target player. So I can tap Krenko, bring in these creatures, and then tap those untapped creatures to go ahead and create some more damage. So I have cards in here, enchantments, that as I'm creating additional Goblin tokens, it's doing damage. Then I've got some cool little sorceries in here. I've got this particular one, Goblin War Party, where I can create 3 1/1 red tokens, or I can give creatures I can control 1/1 and have haste. Well, what's cool about this is, again, if I already have Krenko out, I can cast this, create 3 tokens, tap Krenko, and now I have 6 tokens. The next one is just a simple Dangerous Wager. I can discard my hand and draw 2 more cards. This is something good to be where if I have 0 cards in hand or 1 card in hand, well then you're getting that card draw. The next one, which I don't know that I need this in here, it is destroy target artifact or land, so it's probably worth keeping in there just to go ahead and take out anybody's artifacts. That's going to be a game changer. Next one I have is Chaos Warp. The owner of the target permanent shuffles it into the library, then reveals the top card of their library if it's a permanent card they put onto the battlefield. It's just a good way to get rid of a creature temporarily. The next one is I can basically sacrifice a creature if I want as part of the casting cost and do 5 damage to any target. Not sure if that's the best card for this deck. Next one I have is sacrifice an artifact or goblin, and then Goblin Brigade does 4 damage to a target. If the spell is kicked, it does 4 damage to a target player or planeswalker. I'll have plenty of goblin creatures to sacrifice. Basically, it's just a way to do a quick 4 damage if I need to. Next one is a nice little run 'em up where target attacking creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample at the end of the turn. I don't know that I necessarily need this one. I think there could be a better card to put in here. Then I have Portrait of Betrayal. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature against haste. So basically I'm going to steal someone else's creature and then attack them in the face with it. The next one is Brute Strength. Target creature gets +3/+1 and gains trample to end of turn. Then I have Cleansing Beam, deals 2 damage to target creature and each other creature that shares a color with it. So if I'm playing somebody that has a monocolor deck and they have multiple creatures out there, well, this is going to do damage to each one of them. The next one, which is kind of cool, is Goblin Warstrike deals damage equal to the number of goblins I control to target player. So again, Krenko has that ability to pump out additional goblins. So if I've got 5 or 6 goblin tokens out on the battlefield, I tap Krenko, now I've doubled that, then I can do damage to a target player equal to the number of goblins I have, and then of course attack them with the ones I can, so that's kind of cool. The next thing I've got in here, let me go ahead and move these off to the side, is some of the creatures. I'll kind of run through these rather quick. I've got Bogart Brute, basically just a quick 3/2 with Menace. I've got Tempest Blast, attacking creatures get +2/+0 till end of turn. That should have been with the instants and sorceries. I've got Battle Cry, Ringleader, where when he comes in, it's a 4/4, and when he attacks each turn if able. Then I've got Hellraiser Goblin. Creatures I control have haste and attack if able, which is a nice little card to have. Turncoat Scrapper, a nice little 2/2 with some effects. Goblin Freerunner. Nice little 3/2 that I can get out there that has some additional abilities. Then Goblin Sharpshooter. So Goblin Sharpshooter gives me the ability to, let me make sure I can read it correctly. Goblin Sharpshooter doesn't untap during your untap step. Whenever a creature you put into graveyard from play, untap Goblin Sharpshooter. Goblin Sharpshooter deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So basically what happens is I tap him and he doesn't untap, but anytime one of my creatures die, I untap him and tap again. Well, there's going to be effects in play that may kill off a lot of these goblins that I have into play, so I can have a lot of abilities to untap and tap him to do a nice little point of damage. The next one that's a nice little card to have is Battle Squadron. Battle Squadron's power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures I control. Well, keep in mind, if I've got 5 or 6 goblins out there, I tap Krenko, double that. Now this creature becomes, its battle toughness is equal to the number of creatures I have in play, and it's flying, so it's nice little to have. Here's a nice little Ember Holer, which is a little card that lets me do 2 damage to any target, and he's a 2/2. Next one, when Goblin Assault Titan dies, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. So this is a nice little 4/1. He comes in. If he dies, I can pump somebody else. This is a nice little creature that when he dies, it lets me do 3 damage to target creature or player. Have a nice little 3/2 guy that can come in. Next one I have, it's a nice little surprise, and it's good if I can get it out early. I can sacrifice a goblin. It's a goblin surgeon. So sacrifice a goblin to regenerate target creature. This is actually a card from Fallen Empires. So with all these goblins that I have, every creature I have is going to be a goblin. Well, if they're going to try and kill off Krenko or any of the better creature cards I have out there, I can just sacrifice a goblin to regenerate any of the creatures I need to keep on the board. So it's a nice little thing to have. Goblin Smuggler. Another target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked. Dragonstar Assault, basically it makes him a flying 3/2. Skirk Prospector, which is sacrifice a goblin, add a mana. Keep in mind all my creatures are goblins, so I can sacrifice any number of goblins and equal that number of mana, so I can get out some of my higher casting cost characters out there if I need to. Save that 4 times fast. Then I've got Clamor Shaman, nothing too special. Dark Side Extortionist, which is good. When he enters the battlefield, I create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. So the nice thing about this is if you're playing against 3 other people, there's usually artifacts or enchantments. Then the next one is Volley Veteran, where when Volley Veteran comes into the battlefield, it deals damage to target creature or opponent controls equal to the number of goblins you control. So this is a nice little thing where, depending on how many goblins I have, it's a nice way to kill off some people. The next one I have is Pashalak Mons, and I know I'm saying that wrong. Whenever Pashalak Mons or another goblin you control dies, Pashalak Mons deals 1 damage to any target. Sacrifice a goblin, create 2 red creature tokens. So it's a nice way when my creatures die that I can do damage to other people. Next one is Red Cap Riders. Whenever Red Cap Riders attacks, you may tap an untapped non-human creature you control. If you do, Red Cap Raider gets +1/+1 and gains trample to end of turn. So the hope is I can bring Krenko out and then tap and untap. No, never mind. Sorry. That's just basically I can come out and tap somebody. Nice little. I don't know if this one really needs to be in here. It just does 1 damage to target each player. It's kind of there as a little small defense. I think I could do a better card than that. So if you can see something better than that one, or any of the other cards that I've said thus far, I think there's a far more better cards I can put in here. I know this is not optimized. This is just something I've thrown together and played off and on for a while. But I do know there's a lot better cards in here. And as you can tell, I don't have anything too new in here from the last little bit. Next one is Bloodmark Mentor. Red creatures I control have first strike. So all my creatures are red, so they're all going to have first strike. The next one, whenever you cast a red spell, target creature can't block this turn. Next one's a nice little 0/1 with haste, but then whenever a creature I control attacks alone, that creature, then other creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn. This next one's a nice little sneaky card to put in later in the game. Pay 8 mana and Flame Wave Invoker deals 5 damage to target creature or player. Next one is a sorcery that slipped in here, which was put 2 1/1 red creature tokens on the battlefield. Next one is Torch Courier. Sacrifice Torch Courier, another target creature gains haste until the end of turn. So the hope is I get this out early. On turn 4, if I can play Krenko, I can sacrifice this goblin to give Krenko haste, and then that way he can have his effect right away. The next one is Krenko Street Kingpin. Whenever Krenko 10 Street Kingpin attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. Then create a number of 1/1 red goblin tokens equal to Krenko's power. So this gives me the nice ability to kind of bump up as well. Raging Red Cap, just a little double strike. And then here's a nice little sneaky card. It is Shirk Fire Marshal. Protection from red. Tap 5 untapped goblins you control. Skrewball Fire Marshal does 10 damage to each creature and each player. So here's a nice little ability. Again, think with some of those other cards I have in there. I have him out. I tap 5 of my untapped goblins. It does 10 damage to each creature and each player. So I do have the ability to, depending on where people are at, kill some people off in the late game. And with those other effects I have in there with my creatures dying, it has other effects in the place. So you can kind of snowball off of that. Next one is just Goblin Inquisitor. Then Goblin Arsonist. Chasm Guide. There's another sneaky one I like. It's called Reckless One. It has haste. Reckless One's power and toughness are each equal to the number of goblins I have in play. So remember, the number of goblins I have in play is going to be dependent upon that power and toughness. Then I have Goblin Chainwheeler. First strike, when Goblin Chainwheeler enters the battlefield, it does 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. Then Mog Flunkies. Then Goblin Chieftain is a good one to have. He's got haste, and other goblin creatures you control have +1/+1 and have haste. So if I can get this one out there on turn 3, not only does he have haste, he has my other goblins that have haste. So on turn 4, if I can put Krenko out there, now on turn 4, Krenko has haste and +1/+1, and I can tap him to create more goblins. Nice little creature card that gives me the ability to do some extra things. Squee, which is basically a 1/1 that I can have come back later. Goblin Assailant. Ringleader. And Westback Red Cap. And then for lands, I basically don't have anything too special. I've got Castle Embereth, which basically lets me make the creatures a little bit bigger, and a land cycling. So I knew I went through those really quick. I won't have the deck list up in here because I know putting 100 cards in there is quite a bit. Maybe I'll add it later on. But for those that are familiar with Magic the Gathering, that are familiar with Commander, everyone's aware of power level. What I'm trying to do on this particular one is I want it to be competitive, but I don't want it to be one of those things I'm going to win every game on turn 3 or 4. I don't think I will this deck. I'm not that good of a player. But depending on what I'm wanting to do with this, I would love to hear some comments and recommendations for some cards that you saw in there that really don't belong. What's in there that you know right away that you would take out? And what are some cards that you would expect to see in a Krenko deck that you did not see in here that I should definitely add? And hopefully I didn't have any duplicates. I try to make sure there's not duplicates in there. And then let me take one more sip of this. Yeah, definitely as that ice melts, this peanut butter whiskey gets much better. For those listening, what do you feel about Krenko? Do you like playing Krenko? Do you like playing against it? Do you hate it? If you have a particular favorite commander that you like to play, what is that commander and why? And what are some other commanders that I should consider playing? I pretty much played this one or pre-constructed decks. But I am looking to make a couple more commander decks, so I'd love to hear some comments and suggestions. For those that haven't tried the Skrewball whiskey, it's definitely worth trying. It is one of those things that the more that the ice melts, the better it gets. If you do check out their website, they really have some cool recipes on there. And again, I would appreciate everybody spending the time watching this video. I know I kind of ran through this pretty quick. I'm trying to get better at these. And then please like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. And again, once more, I appreciate everybody listening, spending the time with me. And until next time, cheers.